Hey, it's Tuesday night time for Total Schmidt Show. I'm by the ocean. Let's do this. Hey, tune in every week as I travel the world and I talk to entertainers from all over the world. A lot of writers, a lot of comics, a lot of dancers, a lot of singers, a lot of comics, a lot of producers, a lot of tech people, a lot of comics, a lot of pianists, piano player type people. You know what I'm talking about. Musicians and lots of comics. Every once in a while, we'll throw in a comedy sketch, something like that, some music, some travel stuff. We'll even do a live remote from one or two of the ports they happen to be hanging out at.
That's it. That's the whole show. And I'm going to record it all and put it on the intraweb. Sometimes. Usually late. Always late. Maybe. I don't know. And weekly? No. Maybe. Sort of.
Either way, sit back, grab a beer, light a joint, and enjoy this week's episode of Paul Morrissey and I played softball together years ago. He was a pro third baseman, professional softball. I'm lying, but we played softball every week. Every single week we played softball. Every Sunday morning for years we got up and just played something called the Codger game, which is famous to many comics and writers and producers in the Valley area that played that game for decades. It's been since retired. But Paul Morrissey was a third baseman and a comedian, and I ran into him on a ship, believe it or not, on a ship. He's also a great comic. He got on the Letterman show, and I talked to him about how he did it, and it's an amazing, it's a great story, because it's just he just did it himself, man. He just made it happen, and Paul's done that. He's done at least 13 late-night TV show appearances, tons of work on TV. He writes, he's doing shows. He opens for Tom Papa on the road. He's opening for Jim Gaffigan on the road. He's actually, he's a great guy. He's a great comic, and I was thrilled that he would sit down and do this podcast with me. So sit back and enjoy my conversation with the one and only Paul Morrissey.
Right.
So, and then plus I got the lounge thing, so I'll just sit in the lounge, and it doesn't, you know what I mean? Once you get the lounge.
No, as soon as I get off as soon as possible, no matter what.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, especially in New Orleans. Last time we got stuck with Danny Trejo was on our flight.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah. And he's like 80 years old, man. You don't think about that. He just looks exactly the same.
Dude, I know he's weird looking. He hasn't changed at all. He's the same guy.
That's the key to be. You can look bad when you're younger. As long as you never look hip, that's the key.
Well, he used to come into the barbecue joint that I worked at. I worked at Baby Blues in Venice. I worked there for years.
Right.
And Trejo was a regular there, but so was Carl Weathers. They used to come in.
Oh, yeah?
Who looked amazing for years. And I used to give him a heart. He'd go, dude, you look great.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's the barbecue. But, he looked fantastic when he died, though, man. He was a guy that was, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he kept it. But Trejo is like, yeah, that's the thing. Is like Pauly Shore doesn't look bad for like a 60-year-old guy, but he looks bad for when he looked like he was 20. That's why that child star thing is so hard.
Yeah, right.
Because nobody will let you grow up. They just always...
You're like, ooh, what happened to you? And you're like, I'm 60, dude.
Yeah.
Everybody gets to be 60.
Except for Leonardo, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, well, he's starting to look older. Like, did you see the last one? The movie. God, that horrible movie. It was a good movie, but it was depressing.
I didn't even watch that one. The Don't Look Up thing.
It's I keep forgetting what it's called.
Something Up.
It's no. It's the last one that was just out. What Scorsese did.
The Moon. The Harvest Moon. Yeah, I didn't see it.
Dude, it's when I say it's bad, it's not bad. It's a brilliant movie, but it's depressing, dude. It is just, and he plays just a horrible character. It was this terrible character. And I guess they wanted him to play the detective,
right?
And he goes, I want to play this guy. And Scorsese says, really? So they flipped it and they put him in there. So
wow.
But it was a great movie. But he's looking,
Yeah.
He's looking older. You look good, dude. You look good I don't know where you are age-wise, but
I just turned 50. So.
Yeah, dude, you got to be. I'm older than you, but I've known you for years. So.
Yeah.
It's like you don't age at all. You get younger.
No, well, it was last year. I lost weight for the special, and then I lost probably like 10 pounds, and then I lost like another 25. So that helped.
Nice.
It's just like takes it out of your face a little bit. Just makes it. People don't know exactly what you did.
Right.
Because so I don't think I was like a different time zone, but they're just like, hey, you look you look good, which is always nice.
Well, you lose it in your face first, like I do.
Yeah.
Like when I lose it in the face. And now that I'm older, I'm getting this rooster neck thing.
Yeah. And I can't grow any facial hair, so as soon as that starts happening, I'm
you
screwed.
can't cover it up. That's why I'm going for the beard again. Well, maybe I'll throw a beard on there.
Yeah.
To cover up the rooster neck thing. Because the first place they notice I lose weight is the neck and the shoulders.
I see.
It immediately.
Yeah.
And that's why people go, you lost weight. A lot of times I'm like, I haven't lost that much weight. I lose 4 pounds. You see it in my face.
Right.
It just stands out.
Yeah, I never understood why people grow the big beards all the way down, but I guess that's the point.
Covers up the neck, man.
Yeah.
Like I look in the mirror now, and this camera angle is like, this is why you see so many people do the camera angle up here.
Right.
It's because it's the neck, especially when you're older.
Yeah.
I've seen tons of pictures of people that
the tall people hate it too. That's why Howard Stern always hates pictures, because it's always people looking up at him.
Yeah, it's always the lower part of his neck.
And it's not a flattering angle.
It's not. When you get over like 55, this whole scenario here, it's either veiny or flappy or, you know what I mean? Unless you do something. Like if you get a little tighten up work done.
I don't think you're ever happy with it. Like so I was on the news. I was a sports anchor when I was 21. So I was on TV.
Yeah.
And so I learned, like I was a sports guy. I wasn't a performer person. So when I got on TV, that was all the first thing of like, oh, you got to wear makeup. You got to like get your hair cut nice. You have to wear a suit, all that kind of stuff. And so I just learned all those angles and all that kind of stuff, because it's true. Remember the Andy Kaufman thing where he did that talk show? He had like a sketch show where he's like 20 feet taller than the guest, and he's looking down.
yeah, I remember that.
So in news, I would be the sports guy, and the news, the little lady news anchor would be like 5 feet higher than me, and I'm like, how come he looks so much bigger than me and she's sitting on like 3 phone books.
Yeah, right.
So then the guy next to her, he's on like 2 phone books to catch up with her. And then I was kind of like, how about we all just come down
to the
same level?
Yeah, right.
But there is something about like wanting to be up,
I guess taller on the... Well, it seems silly because you got to frame it anyway.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, how it's like a Muppet Show at that point where you're like down here and up here.
They just want to see it's like a hierarchy thing. But I did notice, I don't know if you noticed when we were talking about Letterman, we both loved Dave. And I did notice when they switched from Dave to Colbert that those camera angles, it used to be like Dave, when he would do the monologue, he would be like looking in and looking almost down at you. Almost like somebody from authority kind of talking down to you a little bit.
Right.
And then I noticed when Colbert took over, he's almost like below the camera and kind of like jumping for attention. And it's in the same theater.
It is the same theater.
So I wonder if like a producer ever was like, hey, we should look at that same angle as Letterman used to have.
Well, I wonder if Dave, because also the desk shots were the same way, because Dave was almost eye level or a little higher on desk level, and Colbert's a little bit, it seems like he's tweaked just a little bit lower.
I mean, Dave's definitely taller, but there should have been somebody saying, hey, yeah, we should do, because that one long shot is like the important shot, especially from that theater, because it's so historic, you can see everything.
Right.
And it always seems like Colbert's kind of jumping up for attention in it.
Like the little kid.
Yeah.
So, Letterman was always looking down on you.
That's what it felt like, right?
Right, yeah, no, I agree, yeah. But you're right, because Dave is definitely way taller than Colbert. Probably 6 inches, right? Dave's a tall dude, isn't he?
Yeah, he's like 6'3" or 4 or
yeah,
something
that's big,
like that.
dude. Colbert's only under 6 feet.
Yeah.
It's gotta be, I think. My ex studied with him.
Yeah.
In Chuck City. Dude, you gotta...
Yeah?
Yeah. But you gotta tell the Letterman story you told me. You gotta tell us in the podcast.
Oh,
That's the
yeah.
greatest story I ever fucking heard in my life.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the getting... I mean, we didn't even cover that part about doing the show, but the getting of it was just this long... because when I was in high school, this is how... You'll remember this, so... I don't know did you ever go to taping when you were a kid, or did you end up going to like a TV thing or anything like that?
Not when I was a kid.
So like Letterman was when he first moved to the Ed Sullivan Theater, this is like 92 or something like that.
Right.
You used to get postcards. You used to mail in for tickets to the show, and they'd mail you a postcard and say you can come, and it'd have the date on it.
Oh, right. Okay.
And so my neighbors got this postcard, and they worked at like IBM or something like that. They're like, we can't go, but your kids want to go. So I had this ticket, so I asked my buddy, can we skip school to drive? You know, it was like 3 hours to New York City. And so we got to skip school, drive 3 hours to New York and go to the taping. And it was,
and you were how old?
I was 18, I think.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it was like, so we went in there and it was like, who was?
I mean, you're a huge Letterman fan. Were you like
Yeah.
him then?
Yeah, like Letterman, Norm Macdonald's on, you know.
Yeah.
Not Saturday Night Live yet, but I was like a Weekend Update guy. Like
Yeah.
any kind of smart, even not necessarily the news. I loved.
I remember that. Yeah.
Danny Breen became
Yeah.
like a friend later on.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
always
that's
loved
cool.
that.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
And he was a writer on Ellen, actually. And so
Okay.
I met him later on, and I was like, oh, I used to love you on... And some people didn't even know he was like an actor or anything. I'm like, no, he's amazing.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
But yeah, so we skipped school, went to this taping, and it was just like as cool as you thought it was going to be, because he did the whole show for the people in the theater. It wasn't a TV taping. It was like, we're doing a show for these people all
Right.
coming to this theater. So even during commercial breaks, the band is playing. Paul Schaefer's doing they're playing like a 30-minute set before the show even.
Right.
And I forget, it was like Bonnie Raitt. Let's
Yeah.
give him something to talk about.
Oh, right. All right.
And they had like Mandy Patinkin do some weird thing. They had Tony Randall just drop in, do something weird. And I
Dude,
remember
that's so cool.
there was like a thing where they just came in, like 2 football players came in and dumped Gatorade on Dave in the middle of the show, like at the desk, like a coach.
Right.
And so then they had to like, take time. They had to like dry his
Clean up
hair
and
off
dry it
and
out.
stuff. And it was so cool. And then I was just like, oh man, I just want to be a part of this, It's so fun, even to be like the usher at this place would be cool,
Right.
And so then there's one commercial break where he's still smoking cigars back then. So in the breaks, he's smoking cigars. We could see him, it's not lit up, but we're watching him,
Right.
And so he's doing like a couple commercial breaks, and he's doing it kind of funny, but he can tell people are getting restless. So he's like, this is the last one. And then he's still smoking a cigar when they come out. So you're kind of like, what's he doing here? And he just takes a cigar, he looks in the camera, he goes, you people at home, you think this shit is easy, don't you? So he's just doing like goofs for everybody, like in the audience,
Right.
And so that comes into play later. So after I saw it, I was like, I became an even bigger fan, And so that was like one of the first things I wanted to do when I got into stand-up, was like try to get on the show. And like, I don't know if you ever auditioned or anything, but like the guy,
I couldn't get on the list, dude.
But yeah, the guy, he was. I even had Jim Gaffigan I was working with at the time. He's like, yeah, you're perfect for the show, And so I did like a showcase, and the guy was just like giving me all the exact, like everything that I wasn't. He's like, you gotta own the stage, you gotta be more energetic, you gotta like.
Right.
And it was just all things that I wasn't. And I was like, oh, Letterman is like all jokes. It's like Gaffigan, Mitch Hedberg,
Yeah.
Jake Johansson, like
Yeah.
guys that
Good writers.
are
Yeah,
a little
those are good
neurotic,
material.
but they just have great material. So that's what the whole thing hinges on.
Right.
It's not performance based, or it's not somebody running around on stage. Actually, the shot is like static, so you got to stay within the box.
Right.
It's so I was kind of like, well, either I got to change everything that I'm doing, or I'm just going to do what I'm doing and just kind of come to the terms of I'm probably not going to do the show,
Right.
So, and at that point, I'd already done Late Show, so that was his production company. So I ended up doing Late Show like 3 more times and just working on that stuff and everything. And then I think I told you I was working on a set for another show, and that booker was kind of like, at that point I had like a system down where I was doing like you have all your tech here. I was recording every show. I had a Sennheiser wireless mic where I was just recording, practicing, for the TV sets.
Yeah. Squeezing the.
Yeah.
Just making it tighter and tighter.
But I was really and to the detriment of like the club show that I would be on the road in Appleton, Wisconsin, but I'm I'm closing with my 5-minute new TV set.
Right.
And so I was really focused on that. So I worked really hard, and it was, you know, it was one of those things where once you did one, you're like, oh, I can do this better. Whereas I know some guys, they work 15 years, they have one set, and they're like, that's all I got. I couldn't do another one of those, you know? But I was kind of like, I want to do another one. So I worked on this set for another show, and the guy was very, like, it was just like, pass, not good, don't like it, you know, very, like, dismissive.
Right.
And so I was bummed out, and then I was just like, and then the guy who didn't like me at Letterman got fired, and so the producers started booking the show. And so my one friend was like, hey, here's the producer's email. If you ever you work so hard on that set, you should just send it to them.
Yeah.
So I literally, like, I told you the story.
Yeah.
I sent it, like, you know, I don't know, midnight or something like that, and then, you know, you just get up in the middle of the night, like, so it's like 3 a.m, and, you know, go to the bathroom and you just see an email, and it's like from them. Right. And somebody had watched it already, and they're like, hey,
that's the most mind-blowing thing.
That somebody was working at 6 in the morning.
It takes especially for, like, how many times you submit something, it takes weeks, and
exactly.
Like, I hope I hear back, and you didn't even get a full night's sleep in.
And and that's the thing, even with bookers, is like, you want to either do it early in the morning, or you catch them at the right time. They're working. Maybe it's a Monday, maybe it's Sundays.
You got to catch them on a whim. Yeah. If in the middle of their workday, they got so much shit going on, you'll get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, and there's people that are like, they think everyone just knows. Like, there's a guy at a club in LA, he's just like, oh yeah, I check every Sunday morning. I was like, well, nobody knows that, you know?
Yeah.
So
plus if that was true, everybody would do it, and then that would be ruined.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a total luck of the draw.
So I just, to
get their attention.
I just got lucky, and then so they sent me something, and I had everything, you know, even like, if they don't like that joke, I got a couple replacement jokes, you know, I had like a real system at that point.
Right.
Like, and wrote all the jokes out and everything like that, and then, you know, the transcript basically, and then they were like, hey, we like everything except for this one, do you have like a replacement, like 30-second one? So I literally, like, just already had it ready, put that on YouTube, and then I sent it. And this is like 3:30, 4 in the morning or something at that point. And then before I even went to bed, I get an email back, like, hey, this looks great. We'll get back to you with a date. And so it's like 4:30 in the morning. I haven't slept yet, and I'm doing Letterman. And so, like...
So now you're not sleeping for sure.
Yeah, is this happening? I'm not allowed to tell anybody, you know, like, well, not that I wasn't, but I just didn't want to, because it's like, is this a thing? Am I delusional because I haven't gotten any sleep? So
is this a dream? Is this around? Plus, with this late night stuff, it's not real till it happens,
right?
Because you get bumped so many times. Like, you even got bumped on that show once, right? And then they still write about it.
Yeah. So what happened was, you know, I worked through, you know, because even when they approve it, they'll watch it again, and then the scary part is, I don't know, you might know this story, which I could probably tell the story, but I know, do you know there's one guy that's a friend of ours, I think, that that was like all set to do a show, like in New York, a TV show.
Yeah.
Flew out there, and then you run it like the night before for the producers, just so they can get one last look at it.
Right.
And so everyone kind of thinks that's just like, you know, part of, you know, window dressing, but like this guy, the crowd wasn't good, so he just kind of like started riffing, and he got a call like the next day from his manager that he wasn't doing the show. So I was always like, until I even do that part, it's not a sure thing.
Yeah,
so I did like, you know, I went to New York the whole week before, just ran through the whole set. They came one of the nights, and they're like, yeah, it looks good. And so I was super excited. And so it was me, I think it was Regis Philbin was the guest, and it was this band First Aid Kit, which is like these two like beautiful Swedish models that they're great singers too. They're really good, but like so they're coming from Switzerland or something like that. And so my parents are there, my girlfriend's there at the time, and so, you know, I run through the set, everything's great, and so the only thing left is like, because the other thing is you have to wear a suit.
Right.
So I wasn't used to wearing like suits back then, so Tom Papa I was working with got me like Jerry Seinfeld's like suit guy in LA, and this is this guy Danny who like gets suits for every talk show host in LA. Okay. He works at this store.
Oh, that's pretty badass.
He got
you got a badass fitted suit then.
And it was great. I still love the shirt. Like I still wear it.
Yeah.
And so that was like one thing because then I wanted to be comfortable in the suit, and then you couldn't use the microphone.
Right.
Which I hadn't done that at that time either.
Yeah, right.
So, and actually we were talking about Dennis Regan, who gave me this advice that his brother gave him, that when you're, because I just didn't want my fingers or to do anything weird with my hands, you know?
Right.
So his advice was to be like a pitcher and start from the middle, and anytime you go to the right or the left, always come back to the middle. Okay. So that keeps you from doing something weird with your hands and not being centered.
So you have like you basically have an ace everybody back to one. Back to one, so your one is here.
Right.
And then you can do anything but just come out. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, plus you look balanced.
And it was very helpful because I didn't even have time to, like, I'm literally like practicing in the mirror, and I'm like, all right, I'll keep that in mind, you know. So
right.
But that was super helpful. And so then the day of the show, everything's good, and the only thing was like, okay, I want my hair to look good, you know, not whatever you can do, because we're just comics. It's the only thing is like we know we're not going to look amazing, we just don't want to look bad.
Yeah, right.
So it's like you got a suit that makes you look passable. Right. You got
yeah, your hair's not stupid.
Yeah.
With a colic or a weird thing.
So here's the thing. So I go to the hair and makeup people, and so they're with the two Swedish models, and it's these two gay guys, and it's like their dream to have these two women in there.
Yeah.
So they're just spending like 3 hours trying hairstyles on and makeup for these, and so I like knock on the door because they hadn't come get me, and they're like, and the guy literally was, I say, hey, I need hair and makeup, and he literally like had mousse in his hand, put it on my head, and then just pulled it forward, so I just had like a mo haircut. I looked so stupid, and I tried to fix it, and then after a while I stopped worrying about it, and then so then I go, and actually they were taping 2 shows that day, so Janelle Monáe was in my dressing room. I was waiting for her to get done, and this is before she became like huge,
right?
And she's got like a whole posse and everything like that. And so she's got this, like, she's known for her fashion. She's got this, like, striped jacket or something. So both of our jackets are on the thing. And so when she gets done, ready to leave, I'm like, hey, do you mind if we switch jackets, you know? And you could tell she was so cool that she actually thought about it, because it's like, I could pull off this, because I had a pretty nice jacket, you know?
Right.
And so, so she's like, nah, my friend designed this one. I can't. She would get mad or something. So she was nice about it. But so then basically they're running through the show. They call you. You have to go downstairs. So I'm at the side of the stage, you know. And Regis is talking, and then I'm making sure my fly isn't down. And then as they're going to commercial break, I see like the 2 producers kind of open the door, and they're just like motion to me, and they were like, it looked like somebody died or something like that. I'm just like, what's going on? And they're like, well, we got bad news, you know, that we don't have enough time for you. And I was like, oh, okay, if that's, you know, I thought it was like Biff died or something. Okay? And so they're just kind of like, oh yeah, you know, they decided, like, because Regis had talked too long. So, and I hadn't been paying attention. My mom was already mad at Regis because he was just like, he's just filling time. Like, he doesn't have anything to say.
He's doing Regis. And he's doing what he does.
And he literally is like, had the Guinness Book of World Records for most TV appearances. It's true. And so, like, and this is my
You're standing there for your very first one.
My first Letterman. So it was kind of all funny. Rest in peace, Regis.
Yeah,
We're joking.
But
it was so they're like, you know, we're gonna get you a date. That was the only thing that was a little scary, because he had just announced his retirement, so it was just all famous people doing it.
Yeah.
So they're like, we'll get you a date as soon as we know, and I'm like, okay, but you don't have
there's a
one
window
now,
on this.
you know. And so that was the only thing. But the coolest thing was, you know, they come back from commercial break. He's got my album that just came out. And he's like, and he you can watch the clip. It's really funny. He's just like, we're gonna have a great young comedian on here. Paul Morrissey is his first time on the show. We were super excited, but we ran out of time. He's like, I wonder why. And everyone knew it was Regis, you know.
Right.
So it got a big laugh. And he's like, and my album's called Paul Morrissey's Back. And he's like, it's Paul Morrissey's Back is his new album, which he's not going to be here tonight, sorry, you know, and that got another laugh. The only thing I was worried about was my mom was going to yell something out or get mad or something, because I didn't get a chance to talk to them before, so I was just like, everything's fine, don't worry.
Right.
And so, so him saying my name on the air and all that even made it more, you know, because like you said, until you do it, nobody knows, But yeah, he actually like said my name, and we were gonna have Paul back, and so that was almost like a build up for the appearance. So that was fun.
It almost kind of takes the edge off.
Yeah.
You know, because you're dying. First of all, it's Letterman. I was a huge Letterman fan, so he's your idol. So to hear him say your name, if you got to say it, then you got some time to let it process.
Yeah,
it's almost better than letting him go, here's Paul Morrissey, because then you're like, shit, Letterman just said my name.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're a little freaked out about it.
No, that was awesome. And like I told you, I got a couple messages from people that are just like, hey, did you ever think you made the wrong decision in comedy? Because I just heard David Letterman say your name.
Yeah.
He's like, you made it, man, no matter what anybody says. So that was cool. And then so it was a month later, they gave me the new date, and then did the same thing, you know, ran through the set. I almost had to take a break from it for the few weeks in between, because you don't want to like run it to death, you know. I just wanted to like,
then it's stale or whatever, you know what I mean?
And so then when I went back, they flew everyone back in, which was nice of them, and stayed at the same hotel, so I already had that part in. And then actually Biff wasn't there the first time. I think he was on vacation, so he was actually there the second time. And so I did the run through. I made sure that they did my hair right that next time.
Right.
It was this girl Kaisa. She's a singer, which we became friends later on. She's come to my shows in Toronto. She had this kind of dance hit where they like dance outside this in the street, like through the sprinklers and all that kind of stuff. It was really cool. And who was the other? Oh, Michael Douglas. It was during the World Cup.
Oh wow! All right.
So he was like, he kept coming in with my parents in the green room, like checking on the score and stuff like that.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of
He was pretty cool. And I did the set, and so it was so much better. Like I said, relaxed. Took my time with it, and it went really well. Like a lot of good things happened, and the crowd was great, man. Like if anything, I had to like drop some stuff because it was just gonna go too long.
Yeah, you were running out of time because that's good. It's a good thing though.
So it was lots of applause, and you know you want to make sure it has a pace. You don't want to keep stopping, you know, because they're so good.
Right.
And but the funniest part was, the most unique part was the end. So at the end, you know, I finish, and then Dave comes over, and they even instruct you, like, he's going to shake your hand, but, you know, we'll come and get you. Basically, like, I don't know if people follow Dave somewhere afterwards or something like that, but they're just like, just shake his hand and stay there, is what they say. So then, so he said, we'll be right back with Kaisa, everybody. And so everyone walks up to him, and I don't know if he said this. I'm pretty sure he said, I fucked it up. But he might have said I messed it up. But I think he said, I fucked it up, Paul, like as he's shaking my hand. And I was kind of like, what? And then the producers come in, and they're trying to figure out if he said Kaisa's name right. Whether it's supposed to be Kaisa or Kaisa. You know, like, I don't know how he said it. It's so then they decide, like, hey, we'll have Paul pretend that he just finished his set, and Dave will come over, shake his hand, and say it again. So we'll just do like a second take.
Oh, nice!
Which is kind of cool. So I get to do like a scene with Dave.
You get to do a retake with Dave. That's cool.
So the funny part was, I was so like over the top with my thanks everybody, like that it didn't even match, so they didn't use it. But I did,
really?
Yeah.
All right.
So and he didn't say the name wrong anyway. But they just did that just in case. But it was so cool to like do it again. So
dude, that's cool.
And he even said, you know, when he came to shake my hand, he goes, "Thanks for coming back," you know, because they must have at least reminded him that I got bumped.
Yeah.
And so he's like, "Thanks for coming back for us. Very funny," you know. And then so I got the cue cards from them, but then there's this guy. Oh man, I'm blanking on his name. It's Bill McKinty or McEntee. He's the guy who's like a retired cop that got injured on the job, and then I think he just joined Letterman as like a stage guy, and then he started writing like the Wahoo Gazette, or you know, like the weird news thing, like the newsletter.
Yeah, okay.
And he's in a ton of sketches. Bill is his name, and he went to my college. Okay. So he found out that I went to Cortland State, so he actually saved the blue cards from the actual desk that Dave had.
Oh, no shit.
So I have those. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was really cool.
Do you have them framed or something?
Yeah.
Or? Yeah.
So that's really cool. So Bill got those for me. So that's
dude,
awesome.
What a great fucking story.
Yeah.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah. So so that made it even better. And then you have the story about getting bumped. The other really funny story was after I did get bumped, I went back to LA, and I went to, I don't know why it was like, you know, you do the improv and then you stop at the Comedy Store, and like, it was one of those nights, there must have been some kind of fundraiser. There's a bunch of people in the bar, like outside, and it was like Henry Phillips. I don't know if you know Henry.
Yeah, Henry does my Monday gig.
Okay,
he's doing it tomorrow.
So if you know, like, he's friends with Mike Judge. Like, he's been on Silicon Valley and a bunch of things that Mike Judge makes. So he's there with Mike Judge, and so I'm talking to Henry, and he's just like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "Heard you got bumped on Letterman." So then he introduces me to Mike, who's like a hero of mine too.
Right.
And he's like, "Hey," Henry's like, "Hey, you just got bumped on Letterman," and Mike's like, "Oh man." And so I was telling him the story, and then Drew Carey is also there. He must have been on this show. So Henry goes to get a drink. I'm just there with Mike Judge. And Drew comes over, and Mike is like, and Drew's like, "Hey, I'm a huge fan of the show." You know, Silicon Valley's kind of right in the middle of the run. He's like, "I'm a huge fan of the show." And then Mike is like, "Well, here, Paul just got bumped off Letterman." And then I had just done this Johnny Carson thing with him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, how did you get that off the festival?" I was like, no, but. And he's like, "How did Letterman go?" And I said, I got bumped by Regis Philbin." And he puts his beer down, and he looks at both of them, he goes, "Fucking Regis Philbin." And I was like, what happened to you? So he goes into like this 20-minute story about how he did, the Carson Tonight Show, and that's what like made his career.
Yeah,
and he was trying to go back during the last week to say thanks to Johnny. And so the night that he was supposed to like sneak on and say hello, Regis was the last guest, and he just kept talking so long that Drew never got to say hello to Johnny.
Dude, that's a pretty big one. Dude, those are both big ones.
Yeah.
And he bumps you in your first one, and then Drew wants to say goodbye to Johnny.
Right.
Fucking Regis Philbin.
That was so amazing, and it made me feel better,
Yeah.
And so, but then to get to meet Mike and him like at the same time, because I had done that festival, I didn't really get to meet Drew, but I was like a big fan also. So, but that was really cool that we kind of bonded on that. But I had Mike Judge is introducing me to Drew Carey, so I was like,
bump from Letterman, suddenly you're rubbing elbows with the big wigs.
And by the way, so we were talking about Silicon Valley, and that guy had just died. I don't know if you watched the show, but the lead character had just died.
Yeah, I heard, but I know the lead character.
So he was like, and Drew was talking about how much he loved the show, and they were just like, "What are you gonna do?" And even then, at that point, Mike was kind of like, I don't know if we're gonna make like a flashback. Like he was like talking to us about like what he's gonna do the next season.
How he's gonna handle it creatively.
And so my buddy Jimmy Ouyang he's a young comic. He was on the show.
Yeah.
And so they had him as this like Chinese guy like with an accent, that didn't speak much English. And I was like, what you should do? You should just have Jimmy come out and just talk normal, and then everyone would be like, "What, you guys thought I talked like that?" You didn't.
Yeah.
I go, "I was just messing with you,"
yeah.
Which he didn't do, but he later became like a bigger character. When like T.J. Miller left the show, Jimmy became like kind of like kingpin of the show. So
right.
But yeah, that was yeah, a bunch of cool stuff happened because of that. It was a wild ride. It was like the whole summer, basically, because I think I got bumped in June, and then I did the show like the end of July. So it was like basically 2 months of just like getting ready for that.
That's
so
a great year, bro.
which now like would be really hard to do for us because like my schedule is nuts. I know yours is too.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's the thing is the longer you do this, hopefully the more things are happening and just the less and less time that you have. So
yeah, you don't have much like with I'm already booking for 2025. I just talked to the guys about that the other day. You know what I mean? So and the farther ahead the better. I'm like, go do it, book it. So, but yeah, you're right, man. I'm looking for little pockets of time to do stuff.
And it's really hard. Like, I told you the story, like, I was in Tokyo last week. Like, this time last week, I was performing in Tokyo.
Right.
So, and even that was, like, somewhat of a vacation, but at least that was a block of time where I could say no to everybody because I'm going to be in Japan. I can't do this, or I can't do that. Like, even radio show or something is like, no, I'm off the grid. For 1 week, and I think you need that,
Yeah, I think. Well, even these little trips in the ship, you're kind of off the grid because you're definitely out of the loop of stuff in Hollywood when you're here.
A little bit,
I mean,
but you're still thinking of like what's next and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
At least I am. I don't know, but that's why I like doing the more shows is always helpful because it keeps you busy, kind of keeps you focused.
Yeah.
And it's always cool to meet people and connect with people because now we've worked in every state, so like whenever someone says you ask them where they're from and they think you're just being nice and they tell you no,
you start to mention joints or places
you've never heard of this place. I'm from Modesto, and it's like I've been to Modesto. I lived in Chico, California, which it's like a big party college, and so a lot of that's a big Northern California thing. So everyone thinks if you live in LA, you don't know anything about.
Yeah, you don't know anything.
Yeah,
I did. There was a place. I don't know if you ever played Fort Wayne. There was a place there called Power Burger.
Okay.
It's this little burger joint, and dude, it's not a chain. It's this little dive corner joint.
Yeah.
That's kind of famous in Fort Wayne, but I loved it. I had family there. There was a club there. And every time I run into someone from Fort Wayne, I'll mention it. And they're like, you know Power Burger? I'm like, yeah, dude. I've been there at least 10 times. Are you kidding me? I mean, they're always freaked out when you know that. It's a small little slice. It's almost like a little slice of Americana. It's almost as famous as Permanis in Pittsburgh.
Right.
Done that? Which is a bigger name. More people know that.
Right.
Than Power Burger, which is this little dump that make greasy burgers. They were like little White Castle burgers made from fresh beef.
Oh wow!
They were ridiculous.
You just reminded me because I did Indianapolis. I was on tour with Tom Papa. We did a theater there, and then the second night was this casino way north near like Gary, Indiana. But even when we went there, it's one of those places where beautiful casino, but like there's literally like a dirt road going there. There's no town.
Yeah, there's some stuff those outside of Chicago that used to be where everybody went to casinos.
Well, that's the thing. We're flying out of Chicago the next morning, and we were like on a 2-lane road for the first hour trying to get west. You know what I mean? To go to Chicago, but the small world thing comes into play. We're doing this casino where we don't think we'll meet anybody we know, and the security guard that's kind of backstage with us, he's just walking us from our rooms to the theater, and so they're like, hey, do you guys know Jim Gaffigan? And like, yeah, we both do. He's from Indiana, right? And like, yeah, his brother works with my sister or with my wife at the bank. So he's talking to his wife at the bank, and she's in the cubicle next to Gaffigan's brother and talking to us.
Dude.
Like, that's how small the world is.
Cracks me up, man. I was on a celebrity ship 2 weeks ago, and I met this guy. He's a violinist. He's like a concert violinist.
Oh yeah.
He's worked for 13 Lines. I've never met the guy before. I missed his show. I'm talking to him for like 5 minutes, and I find out he's from Woodridge, Illinois, which is right next to the town I grew up in, which is Bolingbrook, Illinois. And it turns out we know a bunch of the same people. I never met this guy before.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And he's a violinist, which is someone. There's not many violinists out there. Like comics, you can almost see.
Right.
There's a lot of us. There's a lot of comics out there.
Yeah.
But violinists, there's maybe 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And because that takes real talent. And he puts on a great show. But I was blown away. We knew that we hung on the same bars. I'm like, this is It's
weird. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's really a trip, man. You notice that stuff when you travel all over the world. That's a kick, man.
Well, if you're, a small town, because my town was like, less than 10,000 people. So like anybody that was affiliated with show business within 2 hours of me, I knew.
Right.
Who, Bobcat Goldthwait and Tom Kenny were both from Syracuse.
Oh, okay.
And so they both, and this guy Mike Royce, who's a showrunner, he's from Syracuse. And sports stuff too. It's a good story. I don't know if you're a UFC fan, but there's this, there's one bar. It was called O's Place. It's in Endicott, New York.
Okay.
And so that was like a bar we would go to like in the summer or during college. And so small bar, and we go in there one night, I think during Christmas break, and there's like they're like, oh, they're doing a fundraiser for the bouncer, his parents, the house just burned down or something like that. I was like, oh, okay, so we had extra $10, to get in. And then the UFC is going on, and so they're showing a UFC fight, and it's the bouncer from this bar is fighting.
Oh, no way.
And so he jumps into the ring, and it's Union Endicott is the high school. He goes into the ring, he's got his Union Endicott football jacket on. And it ends up being John Jones, who is like the heavyweight champion.
Yeah, I know.
He was like Mike Tyson of UFC.
That's how big I know how big he is because I don't follow UFC and I know who that is.
And his two brothers are in the NFL, and they called him Bones because he was the skinny one. So he just went to like junior college to wrestle, and then came back and just worked at a bar, but one of those UFC gyms opened up close by, and he just started doing that, and it was just his body type was just made for that because he's tall, he knows how to wrestle, he's lanky. So that's a funny like small town thing.
It's a special type of badass too, man.
Oh yeah,
those UFC guys, they're insane.
And he still hasn't lost. I think he got disqualified once for like drugs, and then for elbowing somebody in the head when they're down.
I think my brother's a huge fan of his because my brother followed Mike.
He's great.
All that stuff.
He was the only guy I watched when I watched. I'm still like I'm an old school boxing guy. Like I'll still watch old like Ron Lyle and George Foreman fights and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, right on.
But yeah, UFC. John was the only guy I would watch and get into. So it was kind of funny that he was right there.
Yeah, small town stuff cracks me up.
And David Sedaris is the other one that's from Endicott. He and Amy are both from.
Oh, are they really?
From that town. So most of his stories are about moving from that town in New York to North Carolina.
Yeah.
Because. They moved down there and nobody's got an accent or anything like that because they worked. His dad worked at IBM, so a lot of people get transferred from New York to Charlotte. Like if you go to Charlotte, it's half of the town is New Yorkers because of that.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. They call it like Yankee something. Yeah. It's pretty. Charlotte is like tons of New Yorkers. Like I know teachers will go. That's where they'll get like their first job. They'll move south.
Right.
But yeah, so I just, like I said, wasn't really into comedy myself. I enjoyed writing, but I wasn't like a performer. And I played basketball in high school and college. Like that's all I did. My dad was a gym teacher, so I just lived in the gym.
Right.
And so my only options were I could have played for the Washington Generals, which a couple of my friends did.
Oh, no way, really?
It was a team that gets beat by the Globetrotters.
Yeah, no, they're yeah.
Which now looking back, and I wish I had done it.
Yeah, just like a season or two.
I took it too seriously. Like my friend Nate O'Neill, he played at Colgate, and he did it for like 2 or 3 summers, and then during the year he would just stay at the frat house, like at college, and hang out with his friends. Like he just kind of stalled for a couple extra years and just had fun.
Yeah.
And this is before, this is like they give you all your tickets at once. So he's just traveling the world without internet, or you know what I mean, like.
Yeah.
Oh, so God, yeah, I think the meal plan. I think it was you got this like card from McDonald's that was like free McDonald's anywhere you went in the world, and
that's
so.
Healthy.
Yeah.
Well, they don't want the Generals in good shape, I would imagine.
But it was like a way to like instead of per diem, like you got here's your food, here's your plane tickets, meet us there, because there is more than one team. There's probably. I forget what they said. It might be between.
Meet us there? So they didn't do like a big rally where they got everyone together? And
well, they would do, like I said, there's like maybe 4 touring teams. Right. And then one of them would have like, Daryl Dawkins would be on.
Right, like a name or something.
The Harlem Globetrotters. But the cool thing was, even though you're losing every game, you got to play in like every NBA arena. So he's got pictures of him with Barkley in the Phoenix, locker room, because those guys are all there. You got to play in Boston Garden, United Center, all that kind of stuff.
That's pretty badass. Yeah.
So he said it combined my 3 favorite things: traveling the world, shooting 3-pointers, and playing no defense.
That's perfect. He's a perfect example.
Yeah. So my thing was like, so as soon as I finished, I decided to not do that. I was thinking about, I even was going to coach for like a year. So my dad was a coach. And then I was like, no, I want to like do something with the NBA. So there's like one of the guys from the Bucks, and then there was one from the Phoenix Suns. And they're like, I could do an internship with the Phoenix Suns in the summer. Mm-hmm. So I end up, my other buddies going to grad school out there. And so we both just drive out to Phoenix. I got like a couple months to kill. I'm working at like some water park, at a hotel, during the day. And we're, it's February and we're in the sun. We're like, we got it made.
This is great, especially from back east.
Yeah,
like, this is awesome. Man.
Yeah, it was like a water slide where there was a person on top and I was on the bottom. So I just had a whistle.
Yeah, not working in water park.
And
do the drill.
I couldn't save anybody. All I did is whistle to get a lifeguard in case something happened. So I
really? Because they were the licensed lifeguard.
Yeah.
You were like the usher.
Yeah, I couldn't do anything. And so it was so great. And so I did that for like a month, and then we found out that the football coach from my high school, his daughter was married to the news anchor in Phoenix. So I just happened to go there one night, and then he's like, if you're into sports, I could get you like an internship at the station here before the Suns thing starts. So I ended up doing an internship at this Fox station in Phoenix.
Right.
And then before the summer, I make like a resume tape, start mailing it out, and then I get a job in Chico, California as like an on-air sports person.
Oh, no, right on.
So I cover, Aaron Rodgers is in high school in Chico.
That's cool, dude.
John Gruden just got the Raiders job. The Sacramento Kings, they got Chris Webber. So I was covering all that stuff. And I remember, this is so great, so Gruden got the job, and you hear he's like 35 years old. So I go to this training camp in Napa, and I'm just looking for the youngest guy there.
Yeah.
Or actually the oldest guy, I guess, because I'm like, all right, well, he's got to look older than the players.
Yeah, right.
So I just go up to the only guy with gray hair, and I start talking to him like he's a coach, and it ends up being Wade Wilson, who is the third string. Yeah. So I completely screwed that up. But it was like Charles Woodson. They had a bunch of stars. Rich Gannon was gonna win MVP, and they had this guy John Ritchie, who was a fullback.
Right.
And so I ended up interviewing him a bunch because he was really funny.
Yeah.
And so then 10 years later, I'm doing comedy. I'm doing co-hosting the Artie Lang show, the podcast, and Nick DiPaolo gets fired or something, and their new co-host is John Ritchie.
Oh, no way! Oh, that's the great.
So there's a clip.
There's another small world thing, man.
So there's a clip I have that Artie's talking to me, and I go and I covered it. I covered the Raiders. I covered a young John Ritchie. And then he just looks over. He goes, I actually remember you.
Really? Oh, that's cool.
So that was really fun. And yeah, so comedy took me, to New York, and then we met at the big softball game.
The big softball.
And Dave
Codgers.
Rath
versus
the
Rath, Team Rath and Team Bees.
Yeah.
Dude, those were the days, man. That was great. It was every Sunday for that game was going on long before we got involved too.
Right.
Because I took it over from someone else, and I kind of ran it for a while. And then Dave left, and but yeah, it was basically the same two teams playing each other every Sunday morning for years.
Yeah,
it was a blast. It was more fun I've had playing softball than in any other league I've ever been in. It was just so much fun. Yeah,
and I was at that point. I was relaxed. There was a few guys that took it too seriously, but
right.
But I met you, Mike Siegel, Brody Stevens was in it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, did you remember Blake Marchuka?
Yeah, of course.
So
he blew out his knee twice.
A couple times.
Twice.
So
or his MCL or whatever.
So his wife was the one. So I'm doing news in Sacramento, and I just go to the comedy club one night to watch. and his wife was already on like TV and stuff like that, and they had moved up to Sacramento like when she was pregnant to have a kid, and so she ends up just saying, do you want to keep going?
Yeah, keep going, dude. I'm trying to lose battery power, and I think I can save it.
Oh, she ends up, she just comes up and she's like, hey, you're really funny on the news, you should do stand-up. And I was like, oh, I was just here to watch the show. She's like, well, this is like the open mic night, you know, we do this like kind of workshop, and then you go on stage. You know, she's like, it would help you, you know, maybe like on air stuff or whatever. And it was kind of like, oh yeah, it does make sense. That would make me, you know, because it was like ESPN where people were being funny, and that was kind of my deal anyway.
It was starting to change around that time.
So I was like, oh yeah, that would be cool. And I was the weekend sports anchor, so this is like Monday nights. So I was like, oh yeah, that's a good idea, you know. And it got me writing and got me like experimenting. I was already doing like daily show stuff at the station anyway. I was supposed to do like news one day a week, and they would be like, hey, there's a shooting at this park, and I was like, I'm not going anywhere near it. Somebody got shot there, you know. I'm gonna go to the mall, ask people what they want for Christmas. You know? And so I just started doing that, and then and even I was covering the Sacramento Kings, and I didn't have our station didn't have the budget, so I didn't have a photographer. So I just called Karen. I was like, hey, does Blake want to like help interview people for me? So he's like holding the microphone to like a naked like Chris Webber, and he's just like smiling ear to ear. You could just see.
No way, really?
Yeah.
Dude, that's cool. I didn't know you guys had that history.
Yeah. He came to a couple games with me, which was really funny. But yeah, and then they moved back to LA like shortly after that, and then I quit my TV job, moved to New York, and it was for a couple of years, and then I came out to actually visit her. And she was working on the Ellen show. It was like her, Karen Kilgariff, that was Danny Breen.
Right.
And so we're in like the Sony, you know, cafeteria, you see Magic Johnson, all these people, and you know, I'm in New York. The best comedian in New York is Dave Attell.
Right.
And he's complaining about how he's got like $1 million apartment, and it's a studio apartment with rats. You know? And I come out to LA, and it's like, it seems like everyone's like has houses and they got jobs, and so I'm like, maybe I should move out here, you know?
Yeah.
And so when I started talking to her again, you know, they were all like, yeah, you should come out here. And so yeah, that was what, 2004 maybe?
Jeez.
So I don't know, when did that softball game start? Because it was
before my daughter was born. So Anna is 22 now. I was involved in that game for probably 25 years ago. And and it played before that, because Beast played it before I got involved.
Yeah.
And then Wrath came in shortly around the time I did.
Yeah, I don't remember Dave even playing very much. Like,
he played for a while. He played every week. He played third base. And then when he left, and they just kept the name Team Wrath. They didn't want to change it. They go, well, I'd rather Team Wrath sound better than Team Schmidt.
Well, yeah.
You know, and so we just kept it. So, were you on my team or were you on Beast's team?
I think I was on your team.
I think you were on my team. Yeah. You were on my team, because Brody was on my team, and Paul Murray was on his team, and I had Travis. Travis, I think, was on my team.
Yeah. So that guy. So he took it way too serious, right? That guy, and it was really funny because, you know, like, I played college basketball, so I'm pretty athletic, but I'm not like, hey, you guys don't know what you're doing kind of thing. But he was like one of those guys that would like, he played first base, so he's like telling everyone where to go.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I'll play wherever you guys want, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm in left field, and somebody, you know, and I know that I don't look like much, you know, I'm kind of short, and so somebody laces one right out to me, like one bounce. And so I just decided to put on the heat, so I fired one right to John.
Yeah. And
he didn't even have time to get back to first base.
Right.
And if he was on the base, I would have got the guy out.
Right.
And then I was, you know, and he's the one that was always yelling at everybody. I'm like,
really,
I was like, hey, what the fuck,
what's
man?
What's up, man? Mr. fucking being in position. What the?
But I never got too competitive about it.
Dude, I got worked up in a couple of those games, man. Bees and I used to yell at each other.
Well, I remember Bobby Tesla, too, who's like the nicest guy, but on softball, he was really so heated.
See, he was on my team. He was my shortstop.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would play
short than the other team.
And I would play third a lot.
Right.
But this is one of the times I played outfield that one time.
And I had Brody in left for a while. And Callow was on my team too. Callow was left center or right
Right.
center or whatever, and he was a good player.
Yeah, Jack wasn't Jack.
Jack was on my team too.
First, what did he play?
He
He's
played
outfielder.
first for a while. He played first, catcher, and then some outfield.
Well, one of the cooler things was when Rath was still playing, he was booking Kimmel at the time, and so I was a big Hedberg fan, and
Right.
Hedberg had the whole thing with his leg, and they didn't know if he was okay, and he hadn't done Letterman, and so the first show that would have him back was Kimmel,
Right.
and this is when it's still live, so
Right,
I kind of taking a risk, but I was like, hey, could I go see the taping, and he was like, sure. Which was like so cool, like because he didn't really know me, and so this is the old days when they have this like crazy green room. There's like a bar and like video games, and he's still dating Sarah Silverman, so she's back there with like a dog. Right. So I'm there with like my girlfriend at the time, and we're just like, holy cow, this is like amazing,
Yeah.
And so you can see Hedberg from like the back. We're watching it on the TV, It's so he comes back with his wife, and I was just like, hey, man, great job, And so I wasn't really expecting much, because I figured he'd be swamped or busy or something. But he looked like super healthy, and it was like he was really nice. And so I was like over with my girlfriend like in the corner, and then he came over to me, and he's just like, hey, so where are you from? And I said, oh, I just moved here from New York, He's like, oh, yeah, I lived in New York, man. I wasn't feeling it. Yeah. And I was like, really? I was like, I kind of feel that way too. Like, it was great to get, the work done, but I feel like things really happen out here. And he's like, yeah. He's like, look around, man. You could get discovered in this room. Which is like really cool. And so I had like a fun couple moments with him, and that was the only time I ever met him. So. Oh,
God, we did a festival in Chicago together, and me, him, and Stanhope and John McClellan spent 2 days together.
Oh, yeah?
And I spent a whole night trying to find coke for him. Every night he's like, hey, we call your guy. I'm like, I can't get a hold of my guy. And we went to Kingston Mines every night till 5 or 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
It was a blur. We took a cab ride. It was me, Hedberg, Stanhope, McClellan, and the cab driver was from like Saudi Arabia or something. Right? And we're swearing up, and McClellan, if you know John McClellan, he's a New York guy.
Yeah.
Swearing, Stanhope is swearing, we're dicking around, And then somebody says something about God, and the cab driver gets all worked up. So now McClellan and Stanhope know that they can't. Now they're really working the guy, and it was brutal. We had to get on. It was insane. But we spent 2 days doing it, and we spent all night in Kingston Mines. That was one of the best festivals. They ran there for just a short period of time.
Yeah.
There was a big one they did, and then there was 2 or 3 years in a row. It was Dan Carlson and I always forget Kevin Rogers.
Okay.
That booked it. He lives in Florida now, and they had a festival too. It was Billy Gardell and it was Hedberg, and I mean they had just huge hitters on this festival.
Yeah.
It was a lot of blasts. You just didn't have a lot of sponsors.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they ended up moving out and leaving, and then one of the networks the cable networks. They ran a Chicago festival. USA, not USA,
TBS.
The other one. Yeah, TBS, the TBS Chicago Festival, and they ran that for years. And then there was a different group of people that ran that festival. Right. I never did anything there, but I did Carlson's a bunch, and it was a blast. But yeah, that's where I met Hedberg, and we spent the whole week together with those guys. And I knew Stanhope back then. We hung out.
Yeah, you want a funny story. So when I moved to LA, I moved to Playa del Rey.
Yeah.
And which is right on the beach. It's
this
beautiful place.
Beautiful, yeah.
And that's where Doug was living. They had this little place. They called it the Jungle because everything was like these $1 million house, like what's his name, Jerry Buss. Lived on the hill there.
Yeah, no, that's a big time neighborhood.
Michael Anthony Hall, like all these houses and so the Jungle was like right on the water, and it was like where the surfers could still live. Like eventually they mowed everything down.
Yeah, right.
But he was in one of those houses, and so that was when he used to post stuff on his website all the time. Like I would follow his blog and stuff because he would write about gigs and everything,
Right.
And it's like him and Lori Kilmartin would both like kind of blog like weekly life of road comics,
Right.
And so he's like, hey, I'm moving. This is before anybody knew he's moving to Arizona, like the middle of nowhere. He's doing the band show at the time.
Yeah.
So he's like, hey, I'm doing a garage sale. So I told my girlfriend, I was like,
shit,
hey,
I remember the
let's go to his garage sale. It was literally down the street.
Right.
So we went there, and it was so funny because it's such a comic, it's just like books and old tape recorders, and like 5 generations of recording and stuff like that. And it was his mom was still there, and his wife, who I think that was part of the deal, was like they knew they were splitting up, and she was like going to Vegas, and he was going to Bisbee.
Yeah.
So I got his margarita glasses.
Oh, right on.
And I still have one.
Oh, that's badass.
Yeah, so
that's
it's
great.
Pretty funny.
Dude, he was a great dude, man. He is a great dude. Dude, all right, let's wrap this up. We're at an hour.
Man.
We have a show.
We got a show tonight.
Dude, thank you for doing this, and thank you. This is perfect. And thanks for telling the Letterman story, the whole thing.
Thank you, man.
I got so much respect for you. I love when somebody takes initiative and makes shit happen, and you do that a lot. And that's a lot of guys don't do that. A lot of guys sit around there going, why don't I get anywhere? And you're like, well, get off the couch, fucker, make a phone call, send out an email, do a tape.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're not one of the and the fact that it all happened within a 6-hour window is the funniest thing in the world, man. You know what I mean?
Well, it's just like here, people will be like, what do you do all day? And it's like, it's not today. It's the 20 years up to this that all the work was done,
Yeah.
And so, and I do, when I work with Gaffigan, I work with Tom Papa now, and anytime a young kid starts asking me about stuff, and it's like, Tom Papa's still working harder than you, like right now. Like he did a radio show, he's doing an NPR show, he's doing a theater show tonight. Like these guys are working way harder than you, and that's I think Doc Rivers was talking about that in sports. He's like, hey, do you know who the best shooters are? The people who work the hardest. Right. Because they asked Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, and they're like, Ray Allen was our best shooter, right? Yeah. Who took more shots than Ray in practice? Yeah. Like, nobody.
Yeah, I tell people that, like, people say to me in the ship all the time, like, what'd you do all day? I go, I worked. I had video stuff, and I had a road, and I just added in part of the new album. They're like, why? I don't understand. What do you mean you worked? Don't you want to relax in the ship or whatever? And I go, no, I got stuff going on all the time. Seinfeld was a big believer in that too. Yeah. Back then, he was writing 8 hours a day. He's like, I write 8 hours a day. He goes, I don't mess around. I sit down, and you don't realize how hard everybody works. Well, you're not going to be successful if you don't work. And Hollywood is filled with guys. Like, I book these open mics now. I book a gig in LA twice a month, and it was one's an open mic and one's another show that's kind of a book show. But I like to have guys like you working on new shit come in and do stuff. And when I do the show, the people that run the club are always like, this is always the best show we have. I go, because these guys all work. Yeah. These aren't open micers that are hanging around Hollywood hoping to get somewhere. Yeah. And there's a lot of open micers in Hollywood that do the same. We were talking about this a little bit. They've been doing the same 10 minutes for 10 years. And you want to go, dude, write a joke, do something, evolve, push yourself, do anything. So,
and I think those are the people that never had to rely on stand-up for their living.
That's
you know what
true.
I mean? Because they're always guys that, like, they got a day job and then they just do it at night. They're the ones that can be, against the crowd, anti-authority, and will ruin a room like yours because they want to keep their integrity. But it's like, not that I want to be a pandering person, but it's like I want to be able to make everybody laugh. Like I want to know of what I do. Like that's why I went to Japan. Like I started going international like 10 years ago. I went to Asia, Singapore, like Hong Kong, Vietnam, and it's just like I love the fact that I can do a memory foam mattress joke.
Yeah, that's
in the middle of the ocean or in Vietnam, and it works. I don't have to change anything.
There's something huge about that. Like Gaffigan's a guy like that. Universality, whatever I'm trying to say. Being universal is kind of is important when it comes to. Well, I was never a big believer in dividing the room. Like I don't go very heavy politics left or right or whatever. You know what I mean? The thing that turned me on about comedy was that it was something I associated with. Yeah. So if I associated, I first saw Louis Anderson in Kinnison, and I saw those guys live, and I was like, I get it. Especially Louis with the family stuff. Yeah. I'm like, oh man, I totally understand. I feel that. Right. I grew up with that, and I think it's better to connect with an audience than it is to.
Well, we always, you get to the point, especially it's like, all right, you when you first start, you see people that do well, you're like, oh, that guy's great. But then you see somebody who's like really different and obscure, and it's like, well, that guy's great. And then when you see somebody like Brian Regan or Gaffigan do something really like not that it's simple, but it's like an everyday thing, but hits it with a different original angle. It's like, that's the hardest part.
Yes.
And so there is this great quote of Brian Regan about, like, you know, just be like, you know, there's like a, you know, Pop-Tarts. It's like, there's nothing new about that. And he goes, I always think of it as like a mine, you know, and all these miners are leaving. They're like, there's nothing left down there. And he's like, well, I'm going to go down there and see if there's something down there.
I was going to see if there's anything laying around. That's funny. That's a really good point.
So that's how I think of it. It's like,
that's smart.
As long as it's original, you can kind of make your turn on that.
Plus your voice, dude. Once you have a voice, you have a certain way of explaining things. People expect your reactions.
And even in Japan, you know, it was great that the guy came up to me. He's like, yeah, you didn't do any of the things on the bingo card, because everyone comes here, they do stuff about the toilet, you know, or the this or that. He's like, you didn't do any of that. So I was like, all right, that makes me feel good.
Yeah, thank you for noticing, right? You actually put work into it. All right, wrap it up. Dude, right to the camera, whatever you got social media-wise, whatever you want to plug, man, website.
Yeah, Paul is a website, is my handle on Instagram. paulsawebsite.com is the website. And then the big thing was we did the album at the National Comedy Center. So that's Ice Cream versus Everything. It got to like number 3 on the iTunes charts last year. So you can download that on my website or any of the social media stuff. It's like an hour and 10 minutes at this great, you know, it's the Tropicana nightclub from the I Love Lucy show.
That's great.
Oh, man, so it was amazing, and there's guys from my high school that were in the audience, so I ended up telling a couple stories about that.
Oh, cool.
And so it's really fun. So it's the most fun I had, like, recording anything. So hopefully you guys enjoy it, and it's great working with you, man.
Dude,
even though
it's
it was a few
nice
days.
to see.
Yeah,
dude. Everyone, I get out here and I'm like, I never checked to see who's here.
But we're in the same neighborhood now that we know. So
yeah, right. So there we go. Yeah, you should come out and do the room. If you're in town, you want to work on shit, come out and do my room sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? I'll get you the info.
Cool.
All right, Paul. Thank you, man.
Thanks.
You're still watching? That's amazing. Nobody does that. Nobody, but you did. That means you want more. Pick one of these clips. Go for it. I dare you. Hey, also follow one of those social media thingies.